Maid helps Mafia boss disabled daughter walk again. He said, "You're mine now." Through throbbing temples and cotton-dry mouth, Sophia clawed her way back to consciousness. The first sensation was cold, concrete against her cheek, damp air raising goosebumps on her exposed skin. The second was pain, shoulders screaming from being wrenched behind her back, zip ties cutting into her wrists. The third was fear, voices arguing in harsh whispers nearby, the unmistakable press of a gun barrel against her temple. "The boss said to wait," one voice growled, Italian accent thick with frustration. "Moretti needs to suffer first." "Look at her. She's some civilian nurse. You really think he gives a shit?" Another voice, closer, belonged to the man holding the gun. "We kill her now. Send him pieces. Same message, less risk." Sophia kept her eyes closed, fighting to control her breathing. Her head spun as fragments of memory crashed together. Victor's confession about his kidnapped daughter, her naive attempt to negotiate with the Calabrese family, the sweet chemical smell of chloroform. God, she'd been so stupid. She'd walked right into their trap, thinking she could save everyone. Before you continue listening, please let me know where in the world are you watching from today. Now back to the story. "Touch her, and Carlo will have your balls," a third voice cut in. "He wants Moretti to watch her die. Personal shit from 20 years ago with his wife." The gun pressed harder. "Fuck Carlo's vendetta. You saw what Moretti did to the Martinez family last month? We keep her alive, he'll bring hell down on all of us." Sophia's throat closed around a whimper. She'd seen Luca's capacity for violence firsthand, the way he'd beaten Marco nearly to death just for speaking crudely about her. But she'd also seen his tenderness with Mia, felt it in the way he touched her like she was precious and breakable. The duality of him haunted her even now. "Check if she's conscious," someone ordered. Rough hands grabbed her shoulder, shaking her. Sophia let her head loll, maintaining the pretense of unconsciousness even as panic clawed at her chest. She could hear at least 4 distinct voices, probably more she couldn't place. Armed men, professional enough to get past Luca's security but arguing like thugs. The discord in their ranks might be her only advantage. "Still out cold," the man reported, releasing her shoulder. "That chloroform hit her hard." "Good. Easier to move her when—" The voice cut off at the sound of distant gunfire. Multiple shots, then silence. "The fuck was that?" Someone moved quickly across concrete. "Check the perimeter cameras." "Cameras are down." The words came fast, scared. "All of them. Just went black." More gunfire, closer now. Screaming. The sound of breaking glass and splintering wood. The gun barrel disappeared from Sophia's temple as her captor straightened. "He's here," someone whispered. "How the fuck did he find us so fast?" The bay warehouse exploded into chaos. Boots pounding on concrete, orders shouted in Italian, the metallic sounds of weapons being readied. Sophia's eyes flew open as someone grabbed her arm, hauling her upright. Through the darkness, she could make out steel support beams, towering shelves, maze-like rows of crates. The man gripping her arm pressed a pistol to her ribs. "Don't move," he hissed. "You're our ticket out." The lights went out. Complete darkness crashed down, broken only by muzzle flashes as gunfire erupted from multiple directions. Sophia dropped to her knees, rolling away from her captor's slackened grip. Men screamed. Shadows moved with lethal grace through the chaos. The sounds of combat were brutal, efficient. Bones breaking, bodies falling, final gasps cut short. Then silence fell, heavy and absolute. Sophia huddled against a crate, heart hammering so hard she thought it might break her ribs. Footsteps approached, unhurried. A familiar cologne, sandalwood and gunpowder, reached her a moment before his voice did. "You're mine," Luca Moretti growled, the words vibrating with barely contained fury. "No one touches what's mine." Sophia clutched the crumpled printout, staring up at the graffiti-covered facade of her Brooklyn apartment building. The paper had gone soft from her sweaty grip, but the numbers still jumped off the page. $150,000 annual salary, plus room and board. It had to be a scam. Nothing legitimate paid that much for basic caregiving work. But what choice did she have? Her mother's medical bills had drained her savings before cancer took her anyway. 3 part-time jobs barely covered rent and groceries, let alone the crushing debt. The hospital firing had been the final blow, all because she'd reported a wealthy donor for inappropriate behavior with sedated patients. A taxi blared its horn as it swerved around a delivery truck, the noise echoing off brick walls. The summer heat shimmered above cracked concrete, carrying the mingled scents of curry from the Indian restaurant next door and garbage rotting in overflowing dumpsters. Her neighbors hurried past with lowered heads, everyone trying to survive another day in a city that devoured dreams. The job listing had appeared in her email that morning, forwarded by her former supervisor with a cryptic note. "Private client. Very selective. Very generous. They asked for you specifically." The attachment contained minimal details: live-in position caring for a child with mobility issues, location undisclosed, immediate start date required. The only contact was a phone number she'd already called, twice. Both times, a woman with a clipped Italian accent had answered, asking pointed questions about Sophia's experience with pediatric physical therapy and trauma cases. When Sophia mentioned her hospital termination, the woman had simply said, "Good. You have integrity. A car will collect you at noon. Pack light." Sophia checked her phone. 11:57 a.m. Her entire life now fit, in one battered suitcase and a backpack. The apartment super had already rented her place to someone else, effective tomorrow. She'd donated most of her furniture to the women's shelter down the block. The only thing she couldn't bear to leave was the small wooden music box that had been her mother's, now nestled carefully between layers of clothes. The decision should have terrified her. No background check on her potential employer, no contract, no real information about where she was going. But terror required energy she didn't have anymore. What she felt instead was a hollow sort of peace. Rock bottom meant there was nowhere to go but up. A sleek, black sedan rolled to a stop at the curb, its tinted windows reflecting the neighborhood's decay. The driver, a broad-shouldered man in an expensive suit, stepped out and opened the rear door without speaking. His eyes scanned the street continuously, one hand resting near his hip in a way that made Sophia's stomach clench. She recognized that stance from the security guards at her hospital. "Miss Reyes?" His accent was Eastern European, his tone leaving no room for discussion. "Your phone, please." Sophia handed over her ancient iPhone. The man dropped it into a small, lead-lined bag, then produced a black silk blindfold. "Security precaution," he explained, not unkindly. "The family values their privacy." Family, not corporation or organization. The word choice felt significant. The blindfold was soft against her eyes, plunging her into darkness as gentle hands guided her into the car's leather interior. The door closed with a precise click. Engine purring, they pulled away from the curb, away from her old life with its crushing weight of grief and debt and shattered ideals. They drove for hours, the city's chaos giving way to highway drone. Sophia dozed, lulled by classical music playing softly through hidden speakers. When they finally stopped, the air that rushed in was different, clean and green, carrying the scent of pine trees and freshly cut grass. "Welcome to the estate, Miss Reyes." The driver removed her blindfold. Sophia blinked against late afternoon sunlight, finding herself before massive iron gates. Beyond them stretched a winding driveway bordered by pristine gardens, leading to what could only be called a fortress disguised as an Italian villa. Ancient stone walls rose 3 stories, windows glinting like watchful eyes, turrets crowned with copper gone green with age. The gates swung open with a whisper of well-oiled hinges, revealing her new life, for better or worse. The massive front doors opened with an echoing groan, revealing a soaring marble foyer that felt more like a mausoleum than a home. Crystal chandeliers cast cold light over Renaissance paintings and antique vases, everything preserved in pristine condition but devoid of warmth. No family photos adorned the walls, no scattered shoes or toys betrayed the presence of a child. Even the air felt still, as if the house itself was holding its breath. 2 more suited men appeared silently, flanking Sophia as the driver led her across polished floors that amplified every footstep. Their practiced formation made her feel less like a guest and more like a prisoner being escorted to her cell. The weight of hidden cameras prickled against her skin. She could feel herself being watched from every angle. They guided her into what appeared to be a study, though war room might have been more accurate. Dark wooden panels stretched from floor to ceiling, absorbing light from tall windows overlooking manicured gardens. A massive desk dominated the space, covered in laptops and documents rather than the leather-bound books that filled the surrounding shelves. Behind the desk stood Luca Moretti. Sophia had expected someone older, perhaps bloated with wealth and excess. Instead, she found herself facing a man in his late 30s, his lean frame wrapped in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. Dark hair swept back from sharp features that might have been handsome, if not for the coldness in his eyes. Gray as gunmetal and just as deadly. Power radiated from him like a physical force, making the armed men around him seem almost redundant. "Miss Reyes." His voice was a low, controlled thing that nonetheless filled the room. "I trust your journey was comfortable?" "Yes, thank you." Sophia forced herself to meet his gaze steadily, though every instinct screamed to look away. "Though I usually prefer to see where I'm going when I travel." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "Security measures are non-negotiable here. Victor tells me you surrendered your phone without complaint. That's good. You'll find we value discretion above all else." The implied threat wasn't subtle. Sophia's spine stiffened. "I signed your NDA. I understand the requirements." "Do you?" He circled the desk with fluid grace, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "This isn't a typical private nursing position, Miss Reyes. My daughter's care requires absolute dedication. No outside contact, no leaving the grounds, no questions about anything you might see or hear. Break these rules, and your employment ends immediately." The pause was significant, along with certain other things. Before Sophia could respond, a door opened on the far side of the study. An elderly woman in a pressed uniform appeared, pushing a wheelchair. "Signor Moretti, it's time for the young Mrs. Therapy." The change in Luca was instant and startling. The predatory stillness vanished as he turned, replaced by something almost gentle. "Come here, Tesoro," he murmured. The child in the wheelchair couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, though trauma had aged her delicate features. Dark curls hung limply around a face too pale and thin, her eyes huge and haunted in their hollowed sockets. Her legs were painfully thin beneath her expensive dress, feet turned inward in special braces. "Mia," Luca said softly, "this is Miss Reyes. She's going to be helping with your therapy from now on." Sophia moved forward slowly, keeping her movements deliberate and non-threatening. She crouched beside the wheelchair, bringing herself to Mia's eye level rather than looming over her. "Hello, Mia. You can call me Sophia if you'd like." The girl stared straight ahead, giving no indication she'd heard. Her small hands clutched the wheelchair's armrests with white-knuckled intensity. Careful to telegraph her movements, Sophia reached out and placed her hand palm up on the armrest, not quite touching Mia's fingers. "Would it be okay if I held your hand for a moment? Just to say hello?" Minutes ticked by in tense silence. Then, slowly, Mia's rigid posture shifted. Her fingers twitched. When Sophia gently covered the girl's cold hand with her own, Mia flinched, a full-body shudder that spoke of deep trauma. But she didn't pull away. Dawn crept through heavy curtains as Sophia woke in her new quarters, a luxurious prison of cream silk and mahogany. The room itself was larger than her entire Brooklyn apartment, with an ensuite bathroom featuring marble countertops and a soaking tub that could fit 3 people. Yet the opulence felt hollow, like stage dressing in a theater production. She dressed quickly in the practical clothes she'd brought: dark slacks and a soft sweater suitable for physical therapy work. The mansion stirred to life around her, footsteps and distant voices echoing through the halls. But when she stepped out of her room, the corridor emptied instantly. A maid hurrying past with linens ducked her head, quickening her pace. 2 security guards stationed at the end of the hall watched her with blank expressions, hands resting casually near their concealed weapons. The silence felt deliberate, orchestrated. As she walked toward Mia's room, she noticed the cameras tracking her movement. Small black domes mounted in corners, their red lights blinking steadily. Every door she passed was locked, handles refusing to turn under her tentative touch. The message was clear. She had access to her room, Mia's suite, and nowhere else. Mia's quarters were a study in controlled chaos. Medical equipment lined one wall, monitoring devices, specialized exercise equipment, and a collection of braces and supports. But someone had attempted to make it feel like a child's room, with pale pink walls and carefully arranged stuffed animals. A bookshelf held untouched fairy tales. A dollhouse gathered dust in the corner. The girl herself sat in her wheelchair by the window, small fingers tracing patterns on the glass. She didn't acknowledge Sophia's entrance, but her shoulders tensed slightly. "Good morning, Mia," Sophia said warmly, keeping her voice gentle. "I thought we could start by getting to know each other a little. Would you like to show me some of your toys?" Silence answered her. Sophia hadn't expected. Different. The file mentioned Mia hadn't spoken in months, but there were other ways to communicate. She settled on the floor near Mia, not too close, and pulled out the art supplies she'd brought in her therapy bag. "I love to draw while I'm thinking. Do you mind if I do that while we sit together?" More silence, but Mia's head tilted slightly toward the sound of markers on paper. Sophia hummed softly as she worked, creating simple drawings of flowers and butterflies. After several minutes, she placed a blank paper and some markers within Mia's reach, not pushing, just offering. The morning passed slowly. Sophia talked quietly about neutral topics: the weather, the pretty gardens outside, funny stories about her old therapy cat. She demonstrated some simple stretches, explaining each movement. Mia remained withdrawn, but her rigid posture gradually softened. The staff brought meals at precise times, leaving trays without speaking. Sophia noticed they never turned their backs on the doors or windows, always watching, always alert. The few times she stepped into the hallway, she found herself shadowed by security personnel maintaining a careful distance. As evening approached, exhaustion and tension headaches set in. After settling Mia for the night, Sophia decided to risk seeking out some tea to help her sleep. The main floor was dark and silent as she crept downstairs, guided by the faint security lights. That's when she heard it. Piano music drifting through the shadows. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, filled with longing and loss. She followed the sound, drawn despite her better judgment. The music led her to a partially open door. Inside, moonlight spilled through tall windows, illuminating a grand piano. Luca Moretti sat at the keys, his usual pristine suit jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal muscled forearms. His eyes were closed as his fingers moved across the keys with surprising grace, coaxing forth notes that seemed to bleed emotion into the darkness. He played like a man possessed, completely absorbed in the music. In this unguarded moment, the cold mask had cracked, revealing something raw and wounded underneath. Sophia stood frozen in the doorway, unable to look away from this glimpse of humanity in the monster. Through the morning light filtering into Mia's room, Sophia wheeled in a small electronic keyboard she'd convinced the staff to procure. She positioned it at the perfect height for Mia's wheelchair, ensuring the girl could reach the keys comfortably. "Music helps our bodies remember how to move," Sophia explained softly, settling beside Mia. "And sometimes it helps our hearts remember how to feel." She placed her fingers on the keys, playing a simple melody. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star." The notes rang clear and sweet in the quiet room. Mia's eyes tracked Sophia's fingers, a flicker of interest crossing her face. It was subtle, just a slight widening of her eyes, a tiny shift forward in her chair. But Sophia had learned to watch for these micro-expressions. They were the only way Mia communicated. "Would you like to try?" Sophia asked, keeping her voice light and expectation-free. She demonstrated pressing individual keys, showing how different pressure created different volumes. "See? Gentle for quiet sounds, firmer for louder ones, like whispering and talking." Mia's right hand twitched in her lap. Sophia waited patiently, remembering how the girl's file mentioned she used to take piano lessons before the accident. Music lived in muscle memory, in the body's deepest places where trauma couldn't reach. After several long moments, Mia's small hand lifted hesitantly, her index finger extended, hovering over the keys. Sophia held her breath, careful not to move or speak and break this fragile moment of initiative. The single note rang out, middle C, pressed with careful deliberation. The sound hung in the air between them. Then, miracle of miracles, the corner of Mia's mouth twitched upward. It was barely there, gone in an instant, but unmistakable. A smile, her first since Sophia arrived. Sophia's heart soared, but she kept her own expression calm. "Beautiful," she said softly. "That's middle C. It's like the center of the keyboard's universe. Would you like to learn what the other notes around it sound like?" Mia pressed another key, then another. Each note seemed to unlock something in her rigid posture. Her shoulders relaxed incrementally. Her breathing deepened. Sophia began teaching her a simple pattern: C, D, E, F, G, up and down the scale, showing how the notes lived next to each other like friendly neighbors. Mia followed along, her movements becoming more confident with each press of the keys. "Music is like a special language," Sophia explained as they played. "Sometimes when regular words feel too big or scary, music can say what we need to say." She demonstrated a playful sequence of high notes. "These sound happy, don't they? Like laughter?" Then she played lower notes. "And these are more serious, like thinking thoughts." Mia's fingers found the high notes, mimicking Sophia's cheerful pattern. The sound bounced off the walls, filling the room with unexpected lightness. And there it was again, that tiny, precious smile. Unknown to them both, Luca Moretti stood in the shadowed doorway, drawn by the unusual sounds. He watched as his silent, withdrawn daughter engaged with the world for the first time in months. His hands clenched at his sides, knuckles white with the effort of remaining still and silent. Sophia leaned closer to Mia, showing her how to play a simple tune. Her dark hair fell forward, mingling with Mia's blonde curls as they bent over the keyboard together. They looked like mother and daughter in that moment, a picture of gentle healing that made something in Luca's chest constrict painfully. But as he observed Sophia, noted how naturally she handled his daughter, how effortlessly she created this breakthrough, his appreciation took on a darker edge. His smile, when it came, held more than just gratitude. Here was the solution he'd been searching for, wrapped in a package of compassion and quiet strength. Mine, he thought, watching Sophia guide Mia's fingers across the keys. She doesn't know it yet, but she's already mine. The music continued, innocent and sweet, while in the doorway, Luca's possessive smile deepened. Sophia's fingers traced the edge of the mahogany desk in Luca's study, guilt mingling with determination. She shouldn't be here, but her need to help Mia outweighed protocol. The room smelled of leather and expensive cologne, everything methodically organized except for a stack of medical files carelessly left open on the desk. Her breath caught as she noticed Mia's name on the top folder. As a physical therapist, she knew she needed Mia's complete medical history to provide proper care. The staff had only given her basic information, nothing that explained the root cause of Mia's condition. The overhead light cast shadows across the pages as Sophia began to read. Her professional demeanor cracked as medical terms jumped out at her. Multiple impact sites, post-traumatic spinal shock, shrapnel trauma consistent with explosive device. Her hands trembled as she turned the pages, revealing X-rays showing metal fragments embedded in delicate tissue. This wasn't a genetic condition or accident. This was violence, deliberate, calculated violence against a child. Crime scene photos slipped from between the medical reports. Sophia's stomach lurched at the image of a mangled black SUV, its side torn open like a tin can. Blood stained the leather seats. A small pink backpack lay among the wreckage. Finding something interesting? Luca's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Sophia spun around, medical files clutched to her chest. He filled the doorway, his expression unreadable as he studied her. The dim lighting cast half his face in shadow, making him look more dangerous than ever. "You lied," Sophia said, forcing steel into her voice despite her racing heart. "Mia's condition isn't genetic. Someone tried to kill her. Put the files down." His tone was soft, but carried an unmistakable threat. "No." Sophia stepped backward, keeping the desk between them. "I need to know what happened. I can't help her properly without understanding the trauma she's been through." Luca moved into the room with predatory grace, each step measured and deliberate. "You were hired to help her walk, not investigate her past. Her inability to walk is directly connected to her past." Sophia slapped the files onto the desk, spreading out the medical reports. "Look at these readings. Her spine shows no permanent damage, yet she can't walk. This is psychosomatic, her body's response to severe trauma. She needs more than physical therapy. She needs—" "What she needs," Luca cut in, now close enough that Sophia could feel the heat radiating from his body, "is for you to do your job without asking questions that could get you killed." The threat should have terrified her. Instead, it fueled her anger. Is that what happened to her mother? She asked too many questions? Luca's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to remind her of his power. "Careful, Piccola. There are lines you don't want to cross." I crossed that line the moment I agreed to help your daughter. Sophia met his gaze steadily. Now tell me what happened to her. I need to know what I'm dealing with. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken violence and secrets. Luca's fingers remained around her wrist, his thumb absently stroking her pulse point in a way that seemed unconscious. Finally he spoke, each word precise and cold. Mia is alive because I made a choice. That's all you need to know. The first hints of dawn painted the sky in shades of purple and gray as Sophia methodically folded her clothes into her worn suitcase. Her hands trembled slightly, but her movements were determined. The manor's silence pressed against her ears, broken only by the soft whisper of fabric and the click of hangers in the closet. She couldn't stay. Not after discovering the truth about Mia's injuries. Not in this house of secrets where violence lurked beneath marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The few designer outfits Luca had insisted on buying her remained hanging in the closet. She wouldn't take anything that belonged to the Morettis. A soft knock at the door made her freeze. Sophia. It was Anna, one of the maids. Miss Mia is asking for you. She's upset. Sophia's heart clenched. Tell her I'll be there in a minute. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. She moved faster now, shoving her few possessions into the suitcase. The morning therapy session with Mia would start in an hour. If she waited, she'd have to look into those innocent eyes and lie about coming back tomorrow. Better to leave now, while the child slept. The hallway was empty when she emerged, rolling suitcase barely making a sound on the thick carpet. She'd memorized the guard rotations. There would be a 5-minute window between shifts when the east exit would be clear. Sophia made it halfway down the grand staircase, before a voice stopped her. Running away, Piccola? Luca materialized from the shadows near the front door, his broad frame blocking her exit. He wore the same suit from last night, though now it was wrinkled. Had he slept at all? Dark circles under his eyes suggested not. I'm not running, Sophia lifted her chin. I'm leaving. There's a difference. Is there? He moved closer, each step measured and predatory. Because from where I stand, it looks like you're abandoning my daughter. The accusation struck true, making her flinch. I can't help her if I don't know the truth, and you won't tell me. The truth? His laugh was bitter. The truth is that knowledge gets people killed in my world. The less you know, the safer you are. Safe? Sophia's voice rose. Like Mia was safe? Like her mother was safe? Your protection didn't help them. In an instant, Luca was there, invading her space. His hand gripped the stair railing beside her head, caging her in. You have no idea what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. She shoved at his chest, fury overriding fear. Explain why a 6-year-old has shrapnel scars. Explain why she wakes up screaming every night. Because I failed them. The words exploded from him, raw and jagged. Is that what you want to hear? I failed to see the threat until it was too late. I failed to protect my wife. I failed to shield my daughter from the bullets meant for me. Sophia's breath caught at the pain in his voice, at the self-loathing that matched the medical reports she'd read. But she couldn't let sympathy weaken her resolve. I'm sorry that happened. But I can't stay here, surrounded by secrets and violence. She tried to step around him. His arm shot out, blocking her path. In his other hand, he held up her passport. You think you can walk away? His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Every enemy I have knows your face now. They've seen you with Mia, with me. You're not leaving. His eyes locked onto hers, intense and unyielding. Unless it's as my wife. The word hung in the air between them, impossible and absurd. Sophia stared at him, searching for any sign he was joking. His expression remained deadly serious. You're insane? She breathed. No, I'm practical. He stepped closer until she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Marriage to me means protection. It means no one can touch you without starting a war. It means you can help Mia without looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. The grand staircase seemed to shrink as Luca towered over Sophia, his presence filling every inch of space. Morning light filtered through the stained glass windows, casting blood-red shadows across his sharp features. Let me explain how this works, he said, voice low and controlled. In our world, there are rules, ancient codes that even the most ruthless families respect. A marked woman, he traced a finger down her cheek, making her shiver, is protected. But a married one? She's untouchable. Sophia backed away until the banister pressed against her spine. I won't be your prisoner. No, he agreed, following her retreat. You'll be my wife. There's a difference. How is that different? As my wife, you'll have power, protection, the entire Moretti Empire behind you. His hands gripped the railing on either side of her, caging her in. No one would dare touch you. You could help Mia without fear. Travel, work, live. Under your control, she spat. Under my name, he corrected. My power becomes your shield. Sophia's mind raced. The proposal was insane, medieval, but she couldn't deny the logic behind it. She'd seen enough in the past weeks to understand the violent hierarchy of his world. And if I refuse? His expression darkened. Then I'll still protect you, but you'll be confined to the estate. No outside contact, no freedom. I can't risk you being used against me. Used how? Tortured, killed, worse. His fingers brushed her throat, surprisingly gentle. The Calabrese family already knows about you. They've been watching, testing to see if you're my weakness. Fear crawled up Sophia's spine. And am I? Something flickered in his eyes. Possession, hunger, maybe both. What do you think? Before she could respond, he pulled her away from the stairs, leading her through the mansion's winding corridors. They descended into areas she'd never seen, past armed guards who melted into the shadows at their approach. Finally, they reached an underground chapel. Intimate, ancient, lit by hundreds of candles. This is where we make it official, Luca said, producing 2 gold rings from his pocket. No priest, no witnesses except my most trusted men. In our world, blood matters more than ceremony. Sophia stared at the rings glinting in his palm. This is crazy. This is survival. He took her hand, his touch unexpectedly warm. I'm offering you a choice, Sophia. More than most get in my world. Be my wife, help my daughter heal and live under my protection, or become my prisoner and watch Mia retreat back into silence. It was manipulation, pure and simple. But he knew her weakness, that beautiful, broken child upstairs who had started to trust her, who had almost smiled yesterday. If I agree, she said carefully, there are conditions. His eyebrow raised. You're negotiating? Yes. She lifted her chin. I want unlimited access to medical resources for Mia. No more secrets about her condition. And I want to continue my work. Maybe open a clinic for traumatized children. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Demanding little thing, aren't you? Do we have a deal? Instead of answering, he drew a knife from his jacket. The blade glinted in the candlelight as he made a shallow cut across his palm, then held the knife out to her. In our world, deals are sealed in blood. Sophia took the knife with trembling fingers. The cut stung, but she didn't flinch. Luca pressed their bleeding palms together, his larger hand engulfing hers. With this blood, he said in Italian, I mark you as mine, my protection, my power, my name. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pressed his gun into her other hand. The weight of it was terrifying and foreign. "Now you," he instructed. "Mark me as yours." With shaking hands, she pressed the gun to his heart, exactly as he showed her. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. His life in her hands, her blood on his. Before she could process what was happening, he pulled her against him. His kiss was neither gentle nor asking. It was possession, pure and primal, a claiming that branded her more deeply than blood or rings ever could. Sophia woke to unfamiliar silk, sheets and golden sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. For a moment, she lay disoriented, her mind struggling to process the opulent surroundings that had replaced her modest guest room. The bedroom was easily triple the size, decorated in cream and gold with antique Italian furniture that probably cost more than her former apartment. Her heart rate quickened as she slid from the massive bed, bare feet sinking into plush carpeting. Gone was her worn duffel bag with its comfortable sweaters and practical scrubs. Instead, a massive walk-in closet revealed rows of designer dresses, shoes, and lingerie, all in her size. The tags bore names like Valentino, Prada, and Gucci. "No, no, no," she muttered, yanking open drawers only to find them locked. The few that opened contained more expensive clothing, but nothing personal, nothing that belonged to her. The connecting bathroom was a marble paradise with a sunken tub and shower big enough for 4 people. But her drugstore shampoo and basic toiletries had been replaced with luxury brands. Even her toothbrush was new, probably gold-plated, knowing Luca's tastes. She wrapped herself in a silk robe, also new, also obscenely expensive, and tried the bedroom door. It opened, but the hallway beyond was different. She was in the family wing now, Luca's private domain. 2 armed guards stood at attention, faces impassive as they watched her emerge. "Where are my things?" she demanded. "The boss had them moved, ma'am," one guard replied without expression. "You'll find everything you need here." "Everything I need?" She gestured at the designer prison. "What I need is my own clothes, my phone, my—" "Your new things are more appropriate for a Moretti wife," came Luca's voice behind her. She spun to find him leaning in a doorway, looking devastating in a charcoal suit despite the early hour. His eyes traveled over her silk-clad form with predatory appreciation. "I won't be controlled like this," Sophia snapped. "No?" He moved closer, backing her against the wall. "You agreed to be my wife. That means certain standards must be maintained, certain expectations met." His hand came up to toy with the collar of her robe, and she forced herself not to shiver at the brush of his fingers against her skin. "I agreed to a marriage of convenience, not to become your dress-up doll." "You agreed to be mine," he corrected, "in every way." His thumb traced her lower lip. "The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be." She turned her face away. "I need to check on Mia." "After breakfast." He stepped back, straightening his cuffs. "Get dressed, something appropriate. We dine together now." An hour later, Sophia sat across from him at a formal dining table that could seat 20, wearing a cream silk dress that probably cost more than her student loans. The room was silent, except for the clink of silver against fine china, as she picked at her perfectly prepared omelet. She could feel Luca's eyes on her, watching every movement, every bite. "You're not eating," he observed. "I'm not hungry." "You need your strength." His voice held a hint of threat. "Eat." Sophia forced down another bite, fighting the urge to throw her plate at his arrogant face. He hadn't touched his own food, content to simply watch her with that unnerving intensity. When she set down her fork, he finally spoke again, his voice a dark purr that sent unwanted shivers down her spine. Get used to being watched. You're mine now. The afternoon sun filtered through gauzy curtains in Mia's therapy room, casting everything in soft golden light. Sophia guided Mia through her daily stretches, the little girl's determination evident in her furrowed brow as she followed instructions. "That's perfect, sweetheart," Sophia encouraged, supporting Mia's left leg as they worked on flexibility. "Just a few more, and then we can try the standing frame." She didn't hear Luca enter. He moved like a shadow, always watching. But she felt his presence, that electric charge that seemed to fill any room he occupied. From the corner of her eye, she caught his dark figure by the doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled to reveal powerful forearms marked with subtle scars. Focusing on Mia, Sophia shifted her stance to demonstrate the next stretch. Her foot caught on the therapy mat's edge. She stumbled backward, arms windmilling. Strong hands caught her waist. Luca's chest pressed against her back, solid as a wall. Heat radiated through his crisp shirt, and his cologne wrapped around her, sandalwood and something darker. Dangerous. "Careful, Tesoro," he murmured, his breath hot against her ear. His fingers flexed against her hips, holding her steady but not letting go. Sophia's heart thundered. She should step away. She should maintain professional distance. Instead, she remained frozen, hyper-aware of every point of contact between them, his broad chest against her spine, his thighs brushing the back of hers, those commanding hands spanning her waist. "I'm fine," she managed, voice embarrassingly breathless. "Just lost my balance." "So I noticed." Was that amusement in his tone? His thumb stroked once along her ribcage, a gesture that seemed unconscious but sent electricity racing through her veins. Mia giggled from her chair, breaking the moment. Sophia jolted forward, putting distance between herself and Luca. Her skin felt too tight, too hot. "Right," she said briskly, smoothing her dress with trembling hands. "Mia, ready to try standing?" But Luca didn't retreat to his usual watching post. He stayed close as Sophia helped Mia into the standing frame, his presence a magnetic force she couldn't ignore. When she reached up to adjust the frame's height, his hand covered hers, allegedly to assist. "Like this?" he asked, voice low and intimate. His chest brushed her shoulder, and Sophia's breath caught. Yes," she stammered. "Just hold it there while I secure the straps." Working around him was torture. Every movement brought some part of them into contact, an arm here, a hip there. Each touch felt deliberate on his part, though his expression remained impassive. Only his eyes betrayed him, dark and hungry when they met hers. After what felt like hours, Mia's session ended. The little girl was wheeled away by her nurse for dinner, leaving Sophia alone with Luca in the therapy room's charged atmosphere. "You're good with her," he said, watching Sophia gather her supplies with those predator's eyes. "She's a wonderful child." Sophia moved toward the door, needing to escape before she did something stupid, like acknowledge the heat building between them. Luca caught her arm in the hallway. "Sophia." She turned, and he was there, too close, backing her against the wall. One hand braced beside her head, the other still gripping her arm. His expression was almost pained. "Don't," she whispered, but it wasn't clear if she was telling him or herself. He kissed her like a man starving. His mouth claimed hers with brutal possession, tongue sweeping in to taste her gasp. His body caged her against the wall, and his free hand tangled in her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss. Sophia knew she should push him away. Instead, her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. She kissed him back with equal desperation, letting out a small whimper when his teeth scraped her lower lip. The sound seemed to break whatever spell had gripped her. Sophia tore her mouth away and ducked under his arm, fleeing down the hallway with her heart in her throat and the taste of him still on her lips. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the estate's manicured gardens as Sophia walked beside Mia's wheelchair. The girl had made remarkable progress in her therapy, and these evening strolls had become their cherished routine. Today, Mia was proudly showing off the pink roses she'd helped the gardener plant last month. "They're growing so beautifully," Sophia said, kneeling beside the wheelchair to smell one of the blooms. "Just like you, Piccola." Mia beamed, her small hand reaching out to touch the velvet petals. These peaceful moments made it easy to forget they lived in a fortress, surrounded by armed guards and security cameras. Easy to forget the dangerous man who watched them from his study window each evening. The first shot shattered that illusion. Sophia's body reacted before her mind could process the sound. She yanked Mia from the wheelchair, covering the girl's small frame with her own as they hit the ground. More shots followed, sharp cracks that echoed off the stone walls. "Keep your eyes closed, baby," Sophia whispered, pressing Mia's face against her chest. The girl trembled but didn't cry out, too familiar with gunfire for a child her age. The thought made Sophia's heart ache even as adrenaline coursed through her veins. Bullets peppered the garden wall above them, sending chunks of stone raining down. Sophia could hear shouting in Italian, the pounding of boots on gravel. She dared to lift her head slightly, trying to spot a path to safety. The greenhouse was closest, 20 feet of exposed ground between their position and its glass walls. Too far. The main house lay another 30 yards beyond that. Where were the guards? Where was Luca? A bullet struck the dirt inches from Sophia's leg, making her flinch. Mia whimpered, her small fingers digging into Sophia's blouse. "Shh, I've got you," Sophia soothed, though her own heart thundered against her ribs. "I won't let anything happen to you." She meant it. In that moment, Sophia knew she would die before letting harm come to this child. Not just because she was Luca's daughter, but because Mia had become hers too, in all the ways that mattered. The gunfire intensified. Return fire now, Luca's men engaging the attackers. Sophia could hear the firefight moving closer to their position. They needed to move. Using her body as a shield, she began inching them backward toward a decorative stone wall. It wasn't much cover, but it was better than lying exposed in the garden. Mia remained silent, brave beyond her years, as Sophia dragged them to safety. Glass shattered somewhere nearby. Men screamed. An explosion rocked the ground. A grenade, Sophia realized with horror. The air filled with smoke and the metallic scent of blood. Then, cutting through the chaos, a voice she knew. Luca, roaring commands in Italian. The sound of his fury made her blood run cold. More gunshots, more screams, then silence, the sudden, deafening kind that follows violence. Footsteps approached their position. Sophia curled tighter around Mia, prepared to fight if necessary. But she would know those steps anywhere. Measured, purposeful, deadly. "Sophia." Luca's voice was raw. "Mia." She lifted her head. He stood there like an avenging angel, pistol still in hand, his white shirt soaked crimson. Blood dripped from his knuckles, spattered across his face. But his eyes... God, his eyes were wild with fear as they fixed on her and Mia. He dropped to his knees beside them, gun forgotten as his hands moved over them both, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Either of you?" "We're okay," Sophia managed. "I got her down in time." Luca made a sound like he'd been shot. In one fluid motion, he gathered them both into his arms, crushing them against his chest. Sophia could feel him trembling. "Papa," Mia whispered, and Luca pressed his lips to her hair. Then he shifted, lifting Sophia into his arms as if she weighed nothing. His face was terrible to behold, part relief, part rage, part something else she didn't dare name. "No one will ever touch you again," he whispered, and it sounded like both a promise and a threat. The stone steps creaked beneath Sophia's feet as she descended into the wine cellar. After the chaos in the garden, the mansion had fallen into an uneasy quiet. Mia was finally asleep, sedated by the family doctor, but Sophia couldn't rest. Her mind kept replaying the gunfire, the screams, the blood. She hadn't expected to find Luca here, in the dimly lit underground chamber. He stood at an old utility sink, shirtless, methodically scrubbing his hands and arms. Blood-tinged water swirled down the drain. In the weak overhead light, she could see the map of scars across his back, bullet wounds, knife marks, a story of violence written in scar tissue. Sophia's foot caught on the last step, making a sound. Luca spun, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. When he saw it was her, his shoulders dropped slightly, but the tension didn't leave his face. "You should be sleeping," he said, turning back to the sink. His voice was rough, like he'd been shouting orders for hours. "So should you." Sophia moved closer, noticing how his knuckles were split and swollen. She grabbed a clean towel from the shelf. "Let me help." "Don't." His command was sharp, but she heard the undertone of something else. Pain. Shame. "You shouldn't have to see this, to clean up my messes." "I already saw it," she reminded him quietly. "In the garden, on your shirt, on the roses Mia and I planted." His hands gripped the edge of the sink until his knuckles went white. Water dripped steadily, the only sound in the cellar besides their breathing. "The attack wasn't random," he finally said. The words seemed to cost him something. "They were waiting. They knew our routine, knew Mia takes her afternoon therapy in the garden, knew you'd be with her." Sophia's stomach clenched. "They were watching us?" "For weeks, probably." His laugh was bitter. "I got comfortable, lazy, seeing you two in the garden every day. It made me forget what I am, what this life is." He grabbed the soap again, scrubbing harder at a stubborn blood stain on his forearm. Sophia stepped forward, gently taking the soap from his hands. This time he let her. "This wasn't meant for you and Mia," she said. It wasn't a question. "No." His eyes met hers in the grimy mirror above the sink. "It was meant for me, again." The emphasis on that last word made her pause. "Again?" Luca was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he did, his voice was distant, like he was seeing something far away. 3 years ago, another beautiful day, another garden. Mia was running to me. She always ran to me when I came home." His hands clenched into fists. "The bomb was in my car. They triggered it when she was halfway across the courtyard." Horror crawled up Sophia's throat. "Oh, God." "Maria, her mother, she was faster than me. She reached Mia first, shielded her with her body." He swallowed hard. "The blast still caught them both. Maria died instantly. Mia—" "The shrapnel wounds," Sophia whispered, remembering the scars she'd seen during therapy. "The trauma that paralyzed her." "I had to watch them burn," he said, so quietly she barely heard him. "My wife, my daughter, because someone wanted to hurt me." His eyes found hers again, and the raw anguish there took her breath away. "That's what they do, these men I fight. They don't come at you directly. They take what you love. They use children and women to break you." Sophia's hands trembled as she picked up the towel again. Silently, she began drying his arms, his shoulders, his back. Each scar felt like a chapter in a story of loss and revenge. When she finished, Luca caught her wrist, his grip gentle despite the violence still evident in the blood under his nails. "Now you understand," he said, "why I keep you both locked away, why I kill anyone who threatens what's mine. If they hurt you. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Sophia's hands shook as she touched the scars on Luca's back, mapping the history of violence etched into his skin. The dim cellar light cast shadows across his muscles, making each mark seem deeper, darker. Her fingertips traced a particularly savage scar near his shoulder blade, and he tensed beneath her touch. "Don't," he warned, his voice rough. "You don't want to start something you can't finish." But the pain in his confession about Mia and Maria had cracked something open inside her. The careful walls she'd built between them were crumbling. She was tired of pretending she didn't feel this pull, this desperate need to touch him, to heal him, to burn with him. "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered, pressing her lips to the scar. Luca spun, backing her against the utility sink. His hands gripped the metal edge on either side of her, caging her in. "You should be." His eyes were dark with warning and want. "I'm not a good man, Sophia. I know exactly what you are." The words came out angry, challenging. She fisted her hands in his wet shirt. "You're the devil who trapped me here. The monster who kills without remorse. The father who'd burn the world for his daughter." She dragged him closer, voice breaking. "And I still want you." The kiss was violent in its desperation. Sophia poured all her confusion, her fury, her aching need into it. Luca groaned against her mouth, his control finally snapping. He lifted her onto the sink's edge, stepping between her thighs as his hands tangled in her hair. "Tell me to stop," he demanded between kisses that felt like drowning. "Tell me you don't want this." Instead, she wrapped her legs around his waist, pulling him closer. "I'm tired of lying." They barely made it upstairs to his bedroom. Clothes marked a desperate trail across the floor, her blouse by the door, his shirt near the bed, everything else scattered between. Each touch was tinged with anger and need. His fingers bruised her hips, her nails scored his back. When he finally pushed into her, they both gasped at the intensity. "Mine," he growled against her throat, setting a punishing pace. "Say it." "Yours," she admitted, the word torn from somewhere deep and honest. "God help me, I'm yours." It was raw and primal, nothing like the gentle lovemaking she'd known before. This was claiming, marking, burning together. Luca whispered Italian curses and praise against her skin, worshipping her body even as he dominated it. Sophia matched his intensity, taking everything he gave and demanding more. When she came, it was with his name on her lips like a prayer. He followed moments later, burying his face in her neck as his hips stuttered and stilled. For long moments, they lay tangled together, sweat cooling on their skin, hearts gradually slowing. Luca traced patterns on her bare shoulder, his touch unexpectedly gentle now that the storm had passed. The tenderness almost hurt more than the passion. It made her want impossible things. "What are you thinking?" she asked, watching shadows play across his face. His fingers stilled. "That I should have met you in another life." His voice was soft with regret. "Before the blood, before the monster." He pressed a kiss to her temple, whispered words meant for the darkness. "If I'd met you before all this, maybe I would have been a better man." Sophia's phone buzzed against the nightstand, interrupting the peaceful morning silence. She reached for it, still warm and content from last night with Luca. The screen showed a blocked number and a new message. Her stomach dropped the moment she opened it. The photo was grainy, but clear enough. Her sister Elena, barely 21, tied to a metal chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. A black cloth was stuffed in her mouth, and tears streaked her mascara-stained cheeks. A piece of paper was propped against her chest with today's date. Sophia's hands began to shake so violently she nearly dropped the phone. The message below the photo was simple. Your marriage made him weak. Now we know where to hurt him. She scrambled out of bed, her mind racing. Elena was supposed to be safe at college in California, thousands of miles from this violence. They'd had no contact since Sophia's marriage, Luca's rules to protect them both. But somehow they'd found her anyway. Running to the bathroom, Sophia barely made it before emptying her stomach. Cold tile pressed against her knees as she heaved, guilt and terror washing over her in waves. This was her fault. By letting herself fall for Luca, by staying when she should have run, she'd painted a target on her sister's back. A second message arrived. Coordinates and instructions. Come alone. No police. No Luca. They'd know if she told anyone. Sophia pressed her forehead against the cool porcelain, trying to think through her panic. Luca was in meetings all morning. She'd heard him leave at dawn. The house staff wouldn't stop her. She had free rein now as the Don's wife. She could be gone before anyone realized. She knew it was a trap. She wasn't naive enough to think they'd let either of them live. But Elena was her baby sister, the one she'd practically raised after their mother died, the one she'd promised to always protect. Moving quickly, Sophia dressed in practical clothes, dark jeans, a black sweater, flat boots she could run in if needed. She tucked her hair under a cap and grabbed her warmest coat. The morning air would be bitter. At her bedroom door, she paused. She should leave a note, something to explain. But what could she say? That she was sorry for becoming his weakness? That she never meant to bring this darkness to her sister's door? In the end, she simply wrote, "They have Elena. I have to try. Forgive me." She left it on his pillow, still rumpled from their night together. Her wedding ring gleamed as she smoothed the paper, the ring that was supposed to protect them both. She started to take it off, then stopped. Let them see it. Let them know exactly whose wife they were taking. The house was quiet as she made her way downstairs. Victor, the head of security, was changing shifts with the night team. She gave him her usual morning smile, praying he couldn't see her terror. He nodded back, distracted by reports. Outside, frost coated the immaculate gardens. Her breath fogged in the pre-dawn air as she walked quickly to the garage. She'd memorized the coordinates, an industrial area by the docks, about an hour away. The staff car would be less conspicuous than Luca's fleet of luxury vehicles. As she turned the key, a memory flashed. Luca's voice from weeks ago, teaching her about his world. The moment they know they can hurt me through you, they'll never stop trying. He'd been right, but he'd been wrong about one thing. She wasn't just his weakness. She was his wife. And in his world, that meant she fought for family. She was halfway to the gate when heavy footsteps approached her window. She looked up to find Luca himself, his expression carved from stone as he stared down at her through the glass. "Get out of the car, Tesoro." His voice was deceptively soft. "Now." She gripped the steering wheel tighter. "They have my sister." His jaw clenched. "I know. They sent me the same photo 10 minutes ago." He yanked open her door. "They're using her to draw you out, to prove you're my weakness." His eyes blazed with barely controlled fury. "And they won't stop unless I bury them all." Sophia's hands trembled as she eased Mia's bedroom door closed. The little girl was finally asleep for her afternoon nap, curled around the stuffed rabbit Sophia had given her last week. The sight made her heart ache. She might never see that peaceful face again. Moving silently through the mansion's oppressive silence, Sophia reached Luca's private study. The door was locked, but she'd memorized where he kept the spare key, hidden behind a loose panel of Baroque wallpaper. Inside, everything screamed wealth and power: dark wood, leather chairs, and most importantly, his desk drawer, where she knew he kept a backup weapon. The gun felt alien in her hands, heavier than she expected. She'd never held one before, but Luca had shown her the basics during a security briefing. Safety, magazine, trigger. Just holding it made her stomach turn, but she tucked it into her coat pocket anyway. She wouldn't use it, but maybe its presence would buy her time. In the garage, she located the least conspicuous vehicle, a black SUV the security team used for supply runs. Her fingers shook as she fitted the key she'd lifted from the staff room into the ignition. The engine's purr seemed deafening in the enclosed space. Sophia checked her phone one last time. The coordinates hadn't changed, and neither had the photo of Elena bound and terrified. Her sister's eyes seemed to bore into her, begging for help. They'd always protected each other, ever since their mother died. Elena had given up scholarships to stay close when Sophia was struggling through physical therapy school. Now it was Sophia's turn to sacrifice everything. The guard at the gate barely glanced at her as she drove through. She was Mrs. Moretti now, after all. That title had brought her security, luxury, and a family she never expected to love. But it had also painted a target on everyone she cared about. Her hands clenched the steering wheel as she merged onto the highway, remembering Luca's warnings about his enemies. He'd kill her himself if he knew what she was doing. But he wasn't here. He was across town at a meeting with the other families, discussing territory and alliances while her sister suffered. Victor was changing security shifts. Mia was asleep. If she was ever going to act, it had to be now. The industrial district loomed ahead, a maze of warehouses and shipping containers. Sophia followed the GPS coordinates down increasingly narrow streets, her heart pounding harder with each turn. The gun pressed against her ribs, a constant reminder of the world she'd stumbled into, a world where love meant blood and protection meant violence. She parked behind a rusted shipping container, out of sight from the main road. The warehouse ahead matched the background from Elena's photo, unit number 47, paint peeling from corrugated metal walls. Two men in dark suits flanked the entrance, not even trying to look inconspicuous. They straightened as she approached, hands moving to their weapons. "I'm unarmed," Sophia called out, slowly reaching into her pocket. She withdrew Luca's gun, holding it by 2 fingers. "I'm here to trade. Me for Elena Reyes. Let her go, and I'll come quietly." One guard spoke into a radio, while the other trained his weapon on her. Sophia's legs trembled, but she forced herself to keep walking. She thought of Mia's smile, of Luca's rare moments of tenderness, of the family she'd found in that fortress of a house. She might never see any of them again, but at least Elena would be safe. The warehouse door creaked open. Light spilled out, illuminating Elena's tear-streaked face as 2 more men pushed her forward. Her sister's eyes widened in recognition, then horror as she realized what Sophia was doing. Sophia let the gun clatter to the ground, raising her hands. Her voice stayed steady despite her racing heart as she addressed the shadows beyond the door. "Let her go. I'm the one he'll come for." Matteo Salvi circled Sophia like a shark, his expensive Italian loafers clicking against the concrete floor. Despite his refined appearance, tailored suit, perfectly styled silver hair, Rolex glinting at his wrist, his eyes held a predator's calculating coldness. "So this is the woman who tamed the beast," he mused, running a finger along her jawline. Sophia jerked away from his touch, earning a dark chuckle. "Spirited. I can see why he keeps you around." The warehouse was vast and dimly lit, steel rafters disappearing into shadows above. Men with guns patrolled the perimeter. She counted at least 12. In the corner, Elena huddled between two guards, silent tears streaming down her face. At least they hadn't hurt her sister. Yet. Matteo produced a phone, scrolling through contacts with deliberate slowness. "Shall we invite your husband to our little party?" "He's not my husband," Sophia spat, testing the zip ties binding her wrists. They only bit deeper into her skin. "No, the ring suggests otherwise." Matteo grabbed her left hand, studying Luca's family crest. "Though I suppose it was more of a collar than a wedding band. Did he tell you why he really married you, Piccola? To mark his territory, like a dog pissing on a fence." The call connected on speaker. It rang once, twice. "Salvi." Luca's voice was arctic cold. "You're either very brave or very stupid. Always so hostile, Moretti." Matteo's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I have something of yours. Pretty little thing. Smells like jasmine." A pause. When Luca spoke again, his tone had dropped to something inhuman. "If you touch her, you'll what? Kill me? Like you killed my brother?" Matteo's composure cracked, revealing the rage beneath. He grabbed Sophia's hair, yanking her head back. She bit back a cry. "Michel wasn't even involved in our business. He was a teacher, had a wife, 2 kids. But you didn't care, did you? Just another casualty in your war." "Your brother died because he laundered money for the Calabresi family through his school," Luca growled. "Don't pretend he was innocent." "He was family," Matteo roared. The sound echoed off metal walls. He took a breath, smoothing his jacket. When he spoke again, his voice was eerily calm. "But we're getting off track. Come get your little maid, Moretti. Just you. No army, no backup, or I start sending her back in pieces." "You're smarter than this, Matteo. Think about what you're doing." "I've thought about nothing else for 5 years." Matteo pressed the barrel of his gun to Sophia's temple. The metal was cold. "Via Industriale 47, 1 hour. Come alone." He ended the call, pocketing the phone. Sophia forced herself to meet his gaze. "You're using me to get to him. It won't work." "It already has, Piccola." Matteo traced the gun down her cheek, along her throat. "You don't know him like I do. The great Luca Moretti, so controlled, so calculating, except when it comes to the things he loves. That's when he makes mistakes. When he gets sloppy. If you know him so well, you know what he'll do to you." "Oh, I'm counting on his rage." Matteo's smile was razor sharp. "The difference is, I'm prepared for it. Your husband's power comes from fear. But fear only works if you have something to lose. I lost everything the night he killed Michel. Now?" He spread his arms, indicating the warehouse full of armed men. "I have an army of men with nothing left to lose, and I have you." Minutes stretched into eternities. Sophia's arms ached from the restraints. Her sister had gone quiet, exhausted from crying. Outside, the winter sun was setting, painting bloody streaks through high windows. Then she heard it. The distant rumble of engines growing closer. Not just one vehicle. Dozens. Matteo's men shifted uneasily, checking weapons and positions. "So much for coming alone," Matteo muttered. He pressed a button on his radio. "Status?" "Multiple vehicles approaching from all directions," a voice crackled. "Heavy artillery, they're—" The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Gunfire erupted outside. Screams echoed through metal walls. The war had begun. The first explosion rocked the warehouse foundation, sending dust cascading from steel rafters. Emergency lights flickered, casting wild shadows as Matteo's men scattered to defensive positions. Through high windows, muzzle flashes lit up the night like deadly fireworks. "Get her up," Matteo barked, hauling Sophia roughly to her feet. "Move to the back office, now." 2 guards dragged Elena along, her sobs muffled by duct tape. The rest formed a perimeter, automatic weapons trained on the main entrance. Their bravado crumbled with each new explosion that shook the building. The warehouse doors burst inward with a thunderous crash. Smoke poured through the opening, thick and acrid. In its midst, a figure emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with predatory grace. Luca Moretti stepped into the emergency lights, blood already staining his tailored suit, a gun in each hand. He didn't speak, didn't warn them, just started killing. The first shots dropped 3 men before they could even raise their weapons. Luca moved like a force of nature, each motion precise and lethal. When his guns emptied, he didn't reload, just grabbed the nearest attacker and broke his neck with mechanical efficiency. More of Matteo's men poured in from side doors. Luca's own soldiers followed, filling the warehouse with chaos and gunfire. But Sofia couldn't tear her eyes from her husband. He fought like a demon escaped from hell, brutal and beautiful in his violence. Blood sprayed across his face, and still he advanced, unstoppable. "Back!" Matteo shouted, dragging Sofia towards the office. "I'll kill her, I swear to God." A bullet took him in the shoulder, spinning, him around. His gun clattered away. Sofia stumbled as his grip loosened, falling hard on bound hands. Through tears of pain, she saw Luca walking toward them, stepping over bodies, his expression terrifyingly blank. Matteo scrambled for his weapon. "You're too late, Moretti. I already called every family from here to Sicily. They know your weakness now. They'll never stop." Luca put a bullet through his head, mid-sentence. The sound echoed through sudden silence. The fighting was over. Bodies littered the warehouse floor. The air reeked of cordite and copper. Sofia felt gentle hands cutting her restraints. Victor, Luca's head of security, helped her sit up. Across the room, other men were freeing Elena, checking her for injuries. But Sofia's eyes were fixed on Luca as he knelt before her. Blood dripped from his split knuckles as he cupped her face. His touch was achingly tender compared to the violence she'd just witnessed. Those cold eyes searched her for injuries, cataloging every bruise and scrape. "You came," she whispered, voice breaking. His thumb brushed her cheek, smearing blood and tears. "I'd come through hell." She saw it then. Behind his iron control, behind the monster he became to protect what was his. Raw fear. Fear of losing her. Fear that matched her own when she'd walked into this trap to save her sister. In that moment, covered in blood and surrounded by death, Sofia finally understood. This was his world. This violence was the price of his protection, the cost of loving a man who ruled through power and fear. But the hands that dealt death so efficiently were now cradling her face like she was made of glass. The warehouse lights flickered, casting shadows across his blood-splattered features. In the distance, sirens wailed, but they had time. Luca's influence ran deep in this city. No one would investigate too closely. "Don't ever leave me again," he growled, pressing his forehead to hers. It wasn't a request. His fingers tangled in her hair, grip possessive but careful of her injuries. "I can't," his voice cracked. "I can't lose you." "You came," she repeated, clinging to his ruined jacket. Because that was what mattered. Not the bodies cooling on concrete, not the empire of violence that made him both feared and powerful. He had come for her, through bullets and blood and impossible odds. "Always," he promised against her lips. "You're mine." Dawn painted the horizon in shades of pink and gold as the convoy of black SUVs swept through the estate gates. Sofia's body ached from the bindings, her wrists raw and bruised, but she couldn't stop watching Luca. He hadn't spoken since leaving the warehouse, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, blood still drying on his expensive suit. Elena had been taken to a safe house, protected now, under Moretti guard. She'd hugged Sophia fiercely before they separated, whispering thank yous through her tears. Sophia knew she'd see her sister again. But for now, distance was safest. The cars hadn't fully stopped when the mansion's front door burst open. Mia appeared in her Disney princess pajamas, her dark curls wild from sleep. Victor, who'd driven ahead to check on her, stood watching from the doorway. "Sophia!" Mia's voice rang clear across the courtyard. Then something miraculous happened. Mia grabbed the doorframe, pulled herself up from her wheelchair, and took a wobbling step forward. Then another, and another. Sophia's heart stopped. Beside her, she heard Luca's sharp intake of breath. Mia's face was scrunched in concentration, her little legs trembling with effort, but she kept moving. One foot in front of the other, slow but determined. The physical therapy, the music sessions, the countless hours of work, it had all led to this moment. "I'm coming!" Mia called out, her voice stronger now. "Watch me, Papa, I'm walking!" Sophia climbed out of the car, ignoring her injuries, tears streaming down her face. She took a few steps forward but stopped, letting Mia complete her journey. The little girl's smile was radiant, fierce with triumph. 10 steps, 15, 20. When Mia finally reached her, Sophia dropped to her knees, catching her in a fierce embrace. They both tumbled onto the gravel drive, laughing and crying. Mia's small hands patted Sophia's cheeks, wiping away tears. "I practiced while you were gone," Mia whispered proudly. "I wanted to surprise you." "You amazing, brilliant girl," Sophia choked out, pressing kisses to Mia's forehead. "I'm so proud of you, so proud." Movement caught her eye. Luca had emerged from the car, but he stood frozen, staring at his daughter. In the growing light, Sophia could see the wetness on his cheeks. All his careful control, his iron discipline, had crumbled in the face of this miracle. Mia turned toward him, arms outstretched. "Papa, did you see?" Luca's breath hitched. He took one stumbling step forward, then another, until he fell to his knees beside them. His hands shook as he reached for Mia, gathering her close. The fearsome Dawn, the man who'd painted a warehouse in blood just hours ago, now trembled as he held his daughter. "I saw, Tesoro," he whispered into her hair. "You're so strong, just like your mother." Mia beamed, squeezing them both before wiggling free. "I'm hungry. Can we have pancakes?" Sophia laughed wetly. "Of course, sweetheart. Go inside with Victor. We'll be right there." They watched Mia walk back to the house, Victor hovering close in case she stumbled. Her steps were stronger now, more confident. When the door closed behind them, Luca turned to Sophia. His expression was raw, stripped of all pretense. Blood still stained his clothes, his hands, but his eyes held something she'd never seen before, vulnerability. "You did this," he said roughly. "You gave her back her legs, her voice, her smile." He reached for her, then stopped, looking at his bloodied hands. "And I almost got you killed. I bring nothing but death and pain to everyone. He broke off, shoulders shaking. Then, in a movement that stole Sophia's breath, Luca Moretti, the most feared man in New York, dropped to his knees before her. "I love you," he confessed, voice cracking. "God help me. I love you more than my own life. But I don't deserve you. You're everything good and pure in this world, and I'm—" He gestured to his blood-soaked suit, the evidence of violence still fresh. The shovel hit frozen earth with a dull thud. Sophia's arms burned, but she kept digging. Behind her, Luca's men worked silently in the pre-dawn light, disposing of the bodies from the warehouse massacre. Steam rose from the freshly turned soil, mixing with their breath in the cold air. This was her choice. When Luca ordered the cleanup, She'd insisted on helping. Not out of guilt or penance, but acceptance. These men had threatened her sister, would have killed Mia to hurt Luca. Their deaths weren't murder. They were justice. "You don't have to do this," Luca said softly, appearing beside her. His expensive suit was gone, replaced by work clothes stained with dirt and darker things. Even now, covered in grave dirt, he moved with lethal grace. "Yes, I do." Sophia straightened, meeting his gaze. "I'm part of this now, all of it." She gestured to the row of wrapped bodies. "They chose violence. You answered in kind. I understand that now." His eyes darkened with something between pride and worry. "This world changes people, Tesoro. Not always for the better. I haven't changed." She drove the shovel deeper. "I've always believed in protecting family. The methods are just different now." They worked together, the silence broken only by physical effort. Sophia's medical training had taught her about death, but this was different. This was about power, territory, and the brutal calculations of survival. She thought of Mia's smile this morning, of Elena safe in a guarded safe house. Worth it. All of it. As the sun crept higher, Sophia's mind wandered to the other family's children. How many had been caught in this endless cycle of violence? How many wives turned to widow, daughters to orphans? The graves they dug today would spawn new vendettas, more blood, more bodies. Unless... She dropped her shovel, turning to Luca. "We need to break the cycle." He raised an eyebrow, waiting. "What if..." She gestured to the city lights visible through the trees. "What if we built something? A clinic in neutral territory, protected by your name but open to everyone. Rival families, civilians, their children." "You want to help the people who tried to kill you?" His voice was carefully neutral. "I want to help their innocent ones. Show them the Moretti name can mean more than fear." She stepped closer, touching his dirt-streaked cheek. "You're not just a killer, Luca. You're a father, a protector. Let me build something that honors both sides of you." He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. Around them, his men pretended not to watch, but she knew they were listening. This moment mattered. "A clinic." He tested the words. "Neutral ground, protected space." His tactical mind was already working through implications. It could work. Create obligations, debts of honor, if their children receive care under my protection. "They'll think twice before moving against you," Sophia finished. "And maybe, just maybe, their children will grow up seeing another way." Luca studied her face in the growing light. She knew what he saw. A woman changed by his world, but not broken by it. Someone who could stand in blood-soaked earth and still dream of healing. "My wife, the peacemaker?" His voice held wonder. "Building bridges while I burn them." "Balance," she corrected. "You protect with force, I'll protect with medicine. Both are necessary." He nodded slowly, decision made. "I'll call a meeting, offer terms." His smile turned predatory. "They'll accept. After tonight they know the cost of refusing Moretti generosity." Sophia looked at the fresh graves one last time. Violence had brought her here, had shown her the darkest parts of human nature. But in that darkness, she'd found purpose, love, family. "Tomorrow," she said firmly. "We'll start tomorrow. Tonight we finish burying our dead." They returned to their grim work, but now with lighter hearts. As the sun rose fully, painting the graves in golden light, Sophia saw hope in the horizon. Not an end to violence, she wasn't that naive anymore, but perhaps a beginning of something else. Something that might, in time, give children like Mia a different legacy than blood and vengeance. The September sun painted the Moretti estate gardens in shades of gold and crimson, Where once armed guards had patrolled with grim faces, today they stood at ease, smiling as classical music drifted through the air. White roses and climbing vines transformed the cold stone walls into something magical. Sophia stood before an antique mirror in what was now truly her bedroom. No longer a gilded cage, but a sanctuary she shared with Luca. Her wedding dress was simpler than the one from their first ceremony. Ivory silk that flowed like water, no pretense or showmanship required. This time, there would be no guns hidden under jackets, no forced vows or survival strategies. A delighted squeal drew her attention to Mia, who twirled in her flower girl dress, pink tulle floating around her legs that now moved with only the slightest hint of their past trauma. The leg braces were decorated with ribbons and flowers, transformed from medical necessity into accessories of celebration. "Mama, look!" Mia danced closer, each step confident and sure. "I practiced all week with Papa." Sophia's heart swelled. The first time Mia had called her Mama, she'd cried for an hour. Now it felt as natural as breathing. "You look perfect, Tesoro." She knelt, careful of her dress, to straighten Mia's flower crown. "Ready to lead me? Down the aisle?" "Papa's nervous," Mia confided with a giggle. "He keeps pacing and touching his tie. Uncle Victor says he's worse than last time." Sophia smiled, remembering the cold efficiency of their first wedding. How different things were now. Victor had returned from exile 3 months ago, his daughter safe, and his loyalty reforged through Sophia's forgiveness. The other families had accepted Luca's new direction, finding profit in peace and protection in medical care for their children. A knock at the door revealed Elena, Sophia's sister, stunning in her maid of honor dress. "It's time," she announced, then paused to wipe away tears. "God, look at you. Mom would have loved this." "She's here." Sophia touched the sapphire pendant at her throat. Their mother's, recovered from the pawn shop where financial desperation had sent it. Luca had tracked it down as a wedding gift, understanding how much family meant to her now. The garden ceremony space took her breath away. The 5 families sat together without tension, their children playing near the fountain. Luca's men mingled with legitimate businessmen, the lines between their worlds blurring under the bright sky. This was her victory, bringing light to shadow, healing to hurt. Mia started down the aisle first, scattering rose petals with theatrical flair. Each step was a triumph, a testament to love's healing power. The guests collectively held their breath, remembering the silent, paralyzed child she'd been. Then the music changed, and Sophia began her own walk, but her eyes fixed solely on Luca. He stood tall and dangerous in his bespoke suit, every inch the powerful Dawn. But his eyes, those eyes that had once terrified her, now shone with naked adoration. This was the man beneath the monster, the father behind the feared boss, the husband who woke her with kisses and protected her with savage devotion. When she reached him, he took her hands like they were made of glass. Gone was the possessive grip of their first ceremony. This touch said cherished, not owned. The priest spoke of love and commitment, but Sophia barely heard. She was lost in memories. Luca's face when Mia took her first steps, his hands gentle as he taught their daughter piano, his fierce pride when the clinic opened, his vulnerability in their bed at night. Their new vows were simple, honest, no threats or conditions, just truth. "You saw past my darkness," Luca's voice carried clear and strong. "You brought light back to my world, hope back to my daughter. I love you with everything I am, monster and man alike." Sophia's response came from her heart. "I choose you, all of you, the protector and the predator, the father and the fighter, my husband, My home. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, Luca pulled her close. Against her lips he whispered with fierce possession, "You tamed the devil. Now you own him." The Amalfi Coast stretched before them, a paradise of azure waters and dramatic cliffs. Their private villa, perched high above the Mediterranean, offered both luxury and security, the perfect blend of their two worlds. Sophia stood on the balcony in a silk robe, watching fishing boats dot the horizon while Luca's arms encircled her from behind. This was their first real moment of peace since the wedding. The past week had been a whirlwind of political meetings disguised as reception celebrations, Luca consolidating power while maintaining the fragile peace Sophia had helped build. "I can hear you thinking," Luca murmured against her neck, his lips brushing the sensitive spot below her ear. His touch was gentler now, in private, though no less possessive. Sophia leaned back into his embrace, enjoying the solid warmth of him. "I was remembering the warehouse," she said quietly. The memory no longer brought terror, only questions. His body tensed slightly, arms tightening around her. "Why think of that now?" She turned in his embrace, studying his face. The morning sun caught the silver threading through his dark hair at the temples, earned more from stress than age. "Because I never asked about the aftermath. 23 bodies, they said, but the warehouse held more men than that." Luca's jaw tightened. He'd hoped to shield her from these details, even now. But their relationship had been built on hard truths, and he'd promised never to lie to her again. 24 were there that night, he admitted. One survived. Sophia's fingers traced the scar on his forearm, a reminder of that bloody night. "You let someone live? You, Luca Moretti, who once told me, 'Dead men can't seek revenge'?" He caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "I let him live because death would have been too merciful. Marco Calabrese, Carlo's youngest son, the one who orchestrated your kidnapping." A chill ran through Sophia despite the warm morning. She remembered Marco's cold eyes as he'd ordered her tied to that chair, his smirk as he'd called Luca to taunt him. "What did you do to him?" she asked, not entirely sure she wanted to know. Luca led her to the cushioned lounger, pulling her into his lap. His hands stroked soothingly along her arms, at odds with the darkness in his voice. "I made sure he'll never walk again. Severed his spine at the same level where Mia was injured. Poetic justice." Sophia absorbed this, measuring her reaction. 6 months ago, such calculated violence would have horrified her. Now she understood the language of power and consequences. "And you let him live to send a message?" "Yes." Luca's fingers tangled in her hair, tilting her face up to his. "That anyone who touches my family will suffer far worse than death. Marco will spend the rest of his life remembering why he's in that wheelchair." She thought of Mia's struggles, her nightmares, the long journey to healing, of her own sister, traumatized by her brief captivity. Perhaps there was justice in Marco's fate after all. "Why didn't you tell me? Before?" she asked, though she suspected she knew. "I wanted to protect you from the uglier parts of my world," he admitted. "Old habits." Sophia straightened in his lap, her expression hardening. "I'm not some delicate flower anymore, Luca. I've buried bodies. I've learned to shoot. I run a clinic that patches up both victims and killers. I'm your wife, in every sense of the word." Her fierce expression made his heart swell with pride and possession. This was his Sophia, the healer who'd learned to wield power like a scalpel, precise and necessary. She gripped his chin, forcing him to meet her gaze. "If you ever lie to me again, even by omission, I'll be the one they fear." The morning sun slanted through the study's tall windows, casting long shadows across Luca's tense form as he paced. Sophia watched from her position in the doorway, noting how his shoulders bunched beneath his tailored suit jacket. 3 of his captains sat at the heavy oak table, their faces grim. "The Russo family is making moves in Brooklyn," Victor reported, spreading photos across the polished surface. "They're young, hungry. Think taking down the Morettis would establish their reputation." Sophia moved closer, studying the surveillance images. Young men with expensive watches and cheap suits, trying too hard to look dangerous. But it was the last photo that made her pause, a candid shot of herself and Mia at the clinic, taken without their knowledge. "They're watching us," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Luca's hand slammed down on the table, making the others jump. "They're dead men who don't know it yet." His voice was arctic. "Clear the room." The captains filed out, leaving that crackling tension between husband and wife. Sophia picked up the photo of herself and Mia, memorizing the angle, calculating sight lines. "When's the meeting?" "Tonight." Luca wouldn't look at her. "I'll handle it. I'm coming with you." Now he did turn, eyes flashing. "Absolutely not. They're targeting me and Mia to get to you. I have every right to be there." "You have the right to be safe," he growled. "I didn't spend the last year building fortresses around you just to deliver you to their doorstep." Sophia moved closer, refusing to be intimidated by his towering presence. "And I didn't spend the last year learning your world just to sit at home while you fight my battles. I'm your wife, not your prisoner." Sophia. Her name was a warning. "No." She lifted her chin. "Either I go with you, or I walk. Right now. No security, no protection. Your choice." The muscle in his jaw ticked. She recognized his expression, the same one he'd worn when she'd first threatened to quit before their arranged marriage, before they'd fallen in love, before she'd learned to match his stubborn will with her own. "You think I won't stop you?" His voice was dangerously soft. "You think I won't find a way?" She stepped closer, laying her palm against his chest. "Luca, they're using me against you because they think I'm your weakness. Show them I'm your strength instead." His hand covered hers, grip almost painful. "If anything happened to you, nothing will happen. Because you'll be there, and I'll be there, and together we're unstoppable." She smiled slightly. "Besides, I didn't spend all those hours learning Italian business etiquette for nothing." A reluctant smile tugged at his mouth. She'd insisted on proper training after becoming his wife, learning everything from wine pairings to negotiation tactics. The old families had been impressed by her grasp of tradition. "You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met," he muttered. "You love me for it." She reached up, straightening his tie. "Now tell me about the Russo family. What's their real motivation?" His hands settled on her waist, recognizing defeat. "They're the children of men I killed 15 years ago when they tried moving product through our territory. Now they want revenge, wrapped in ambition." Sophia nodded, mind already working. "So they're emotional, inexperienced, and trying to prove themselves. We can use that." "We?" His eyebrow lifted. "Yes, we." She smoothed his lapels. "Now let me change into something appropriately intimidating. A Moretti wife should look the part when putting upstarts in their place." His laugh was low and warm. "God help anyone who underestimates you, my love." She pressed a kiss to his jaw, tasting expensive cologne and familiar skin. "That's exactly what I'm counting on." Golden afternoon light bathed the Moretti estate's sprawling grounds, painting everything in warm honey tones. Sophia stood on the terrace, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea, watching the garden where Mia had her art supplies spread across a checkered blanket. The little girl's tongue poked out in concentration as she worked, dark curls falling forward over her face. She'd insisted on setting up outside, saying the flowers helped her draw better. 6 months ago, she wouldn't have been able to get there on her own. Sophia's heart swelled as she watched Mia push herself up from the blanket, gathering her completed masterpiece. The leg braces were gone now, replaced by determination and growing strength. Each step was deliberate but steady as she started across the lawn. "Papa!" Mia called out, spotting Luca emerging from his study onto the terrace. "I made something." Sophia felt Luca tense beside her, his breath catching as they both watched their daughter navigate the gentle slope. His hand found Sophia's, squeezing almost painfully tight. They'd seen Mia walk before, but every time felt like a miracle. Mia's steps grew more confident as she approached, the paper clutched carefully in her small hands. Her dark eyes, so like her father's, sparkled with pride. No trace remained of the silent, withdrawn child Sophia had first met. "Look," Mia said, holding up her drawing. "It's us." 3 figures stood hand in hand, rendered in bright, crayon strokes. The tallest wore a black suit, a small smile on his face. Beside him, a woman in a blue dress with long, dark hair. And between them, a little girl in pink, her smile taking up half her face. "Our family," Mia explained, beaming. "See, we're in the garden, and there's the fountain, and those are the roses Mama helped me plant." Sophia knelt down, drawing Mia into a gentle hug. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. You've captured everyone perfectly." "Even Papa's grumpy eyebrows?" Mia giggled, pointing to the thick lines she'd drawn above stick figure Luca's eyes. A choked sound came from above them, something between a laugh and a sob. Sophia looked up to find Luca staring at their daughter with naked wonder on his face. All his careful control had cracked, revealing the raw emotion beneath. "Papa?" Mia asked, suddenly uncertain. "Don't you like it?" Luca dropped to his knees, pulling both Mia and Sophia into his arms. "I love it," he whispered hoarsely. "More than anything." Mia wiggled happily between them, then announced, "I'm going to make another one, with the horses this time." She pulled away and headed back toward her art supplies, each step sure and strong. Sophia and Luca remained kneeling on the terrace, watching their daughter's progress. Tears glinted in Luca's eyes as he turned to Sophia. "She walks because of you," he said softly, voice rough with emotion. His hand cupped Sophia's cheek, thumb brushing across her skin with infinite tenderness. Sophia leaned into his touch, shaking her head. "She walks because you never gave up." In the garden, Mia settled back onto her blanket, already reaching for fresh paper and crayons. Her laughter floated back to them on the warm breeze, a sound that had once been as rare as rainfall in the desert. Moonlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the master suite, casting silver shadows across the silk sheets. Sophia stirred from sleep at the feather-light touch of lips against her shoulder, trailing up her neck. Luca's presence surrounded her, the warmth of his body, the subtle cologne that clung to his skin even at this late hour, the gentle scrape of stubble against her sensitive flesh. "Tesoro," he murmured against her ear, his voice rough with need. His hand splayed possessively across her stomach, drawing her back against his chest. "My beautiful wife." Sophia turned in his arms, finding his eyes dark and intense in the dim light. During the day, he wore masks: the brutal Mafia boss, the calculating businessman, the protective father. But here, in their bed, all pretenses fell away. Here, he was simply hers. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly, reaching up to trace the sharp line of his jaw. She felt the muscle tick beneath her fingers as he clenched his teeth. "Dreaming of you," he admitted, capturing her wandering hand and pressing a kiss to her palm. Of this, of how impossible it seems that you're really here. His lips found hers then, the kiss deep and consuming. There was an edge of desperation to it, a fierce need to claim and possess that made her breath catch. Sophia recognized this mood. He got like this sometimes, especially after close calls or threats to their family. The need to reaffirm that she was his, safe in his arms. "I'm here," she whispered against his mouth. "I'm not going anywhere." A growl rumbled in his chest as he shifted over her, pinning her beneath his weight. His hands tangled in her hair, tilting her head back as his mouth blazed a trail of fire down her throat. Every touch was reverent, yet demanding. Gentle, yet commanding. "Mine," he breathed against her collarbone, teeth grazing the sensitive skin. "Say it." "Yours," Sophia gasped, as his hands roamed lower, igniting sparks of pleasure everywhere they touched. "Always yours." The moonlight painted his powerful body in silver and shadow as he moved above her. Scars marked his skin, testament to the violent life he led. But Sophia had learned to love even these. They were part of him, part of the complex man who killed without mercy, yet loved with absolute devotion. His touch grew more urgent, more demanding. Sophia met his passion with her own, her nails scoring his back as he drove them both higher. In these moments, the lines between them blurred until she couldn't tell where she ended, and he began. "Ti amo," he groaned against her neck, the Italian falling from his lips like a prayer. More than life, more than breath. Pleasure built between them, fierce and overwhelming. Sophia clung to him as waves of sensation crashed over her, Luca's name a cry on her lips. He followed her over the edge with a guttural moan, his powerful body shuddering above her. For long moments they lay tangled together, hearts racing, breath mingling. Luca's weight pressed her into the mattress, but Sophia welcomed it. She loved these moments when he allowed himself to be vulnerable, to need her completely. Finally, he shifted to the side, drawing her with him so she remained cradled against his chest. His fingers traced idle patterns on her bare skin as their breathing slowly steadied. "When I first brought you here," he murmured, "I thought I could keep you at a distance, just the caregiver for my daughter, just another asset to control." Sophia smiled against his chest, remembering those early days of tension and uncertainty. "How did that work out for you?" His hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up to his. In the moonlight, his eyes burned with an intensity that stole her breath. "You destroyed every wall, broke every rule." His forehead pressed against hers, his voice dropping to a possessive growl. "No escape, no end. You're mine now. Always." I hope you like this story. Please share what's your favorite part of the story and where in the world you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.